Hey, this is Drew Page. Welcome to the Drew Page channel. In this video, we are going to talk about the racial injustice case that the mainstream media is completely ignoring. They've been focusing obviously on the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, both on the news as well as YouTubers are putting video after video out about Kyle Rittenhouse. And then, of course, yesterday the verdict came down on the Ahmaud Arbery trial, and all of the defendants were found guilty. And so justice seems to have been served in both cases. But there's one case that for some reason the mainstream media is ignoring that seems to involve racial injustice. So why is the mainstream media ignoring it? Why aren't the prominent YouTubers talking about it? So let's dive in with that today. But before we get started, please take a second to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button to help with the algorithm. And please put in the comments if you agree or disagree with my analysis in the cases. I always check those and I try to respond to everybody who comments. So please take a second to do that. Also, if you find this helpful, please consider sharing this video with other people so perhaps they can get some benefit out of these videos as well. All right, let's jump in. So in 1981, in Syracuse, Alice Ahmaud was raped by an unidentified black man. Unfortunately for Mr. Broadwater, one day he happened to be walking down the road a few months later and smiled at Miss Ahmaud and said, "Hey girl, do I know you from somewhere?" And as a result of that, Alice Ahmaud's mind went back to the rape and she said, "This is definitely the guy." Now, as the case progressed, she ended up doing a police lineup. Some men were lined up in the police precinct. She did not identify Mr. Broadwater as the person who raped her at Syracuse, but actually identified someone else and gave some defining characteristics about the way that person was looking at her. However, the trial proceeded because a forensic scientist had said that based on hair analysis, Mr. Broadwater was definitely the one who committed the rape. Now, the U.S. Department of Justice has since deemed that type of hair analysis to be junk science. So really the case boiled down to this analysis of the hair. And then at trial, Alice Ahmaud pointed at Anthony Broadwater and said, "That's the guy who did it." And based on those two factors, the prosecution convinced a jury beyond a reasonable doubt Mr. Broadwater, an African-American man, was guilty of raping this white woman, Alice Ahmaud. Now, Alice Ahmaud in 1999 wrote a best-selling book called Lucky. And as a result of this book, she put in information about this event. It was based on the rape that she experienced, and she gave a pseudonym that essentially identifies him in the book as the person who committed these crimes. And fast forward about 16 years later, the book Lucky was going to be made into a movie. And as a part of vetting the information from the script, the production company began to look into the case itself. And because of the work that the production company did in getting that information to the prosecutor now, Mr. Fitzpatrick, I believe it's William Fitzpatrick, they began to take another look at the case. So when they looked at the hair analysis and said, "This is junk science, it doesn't work," they put that aside. So then really this case boiled down to the credibility of Alice Ahmaud's identification in court. Now, this is why I think that the media is kind of ignoring this, because the mainstream media has been pushing out the Me Too movement and the Believe Women hashtag. And obviously they have this big push to make sure women are protected as a result of these sexual abuse cases, and wanting people to come forward and feel comfortable and believing them and not just pushing them aside, which is a reasonable thing to do. But when it comes to a trial, a criminal trial that requires evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, the issue is not believing women, it's believing the evidence. What is the evidence that we have in court to demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that a person actually committed the crime? And in this case, because of the faulty identification at the police station, the court, in addition to the hair follicle information, as well as the prosecutor himself, said this case should never have been brought. He said an apology does not even cut it. So why is the mainstream media not hearing it? Because of their conflicting views. Obviously, the Rittenhouse verdict and the Ahmaud Arbery feeds into the division narrative that the mainstream media wants to present to try to divide the country, and it gets them more ratings and things of that nature. And so those are the stories that are getting the big push. Whereas Mr. Broadwater's case, which is a clear case of injustice, where a person was wrongfully imprisoned for 16 years of his life. But not just that, even upon his release, he indicated that he had difficulty finding employment. He's worked as a trash man and other things. After having served in the military, he came back and is now unemployable. So he's had this scar that followed him of being a convicted rapist that has haunted him throughout not only the time he served wrongfully in prison, but also the time that he got out and wasn't able to find work and was deemed a sex offender and all of these other things that were a stigma on his life. But it goes contrary also to the Me Too, Believe Women narrative. And the mainstream media has built so much into that over the last 2 years that it's a conflict of interest for them between racial injustice and the Me Too movement. And so instead of addressing this real injustice that's occurred, not some made up problem with the system or anything like that, this is a clear injustice. They just aren't talking about it. They're not making a big deal out of it. And I just, it really bothers me that this is a case where a person was clearly innocent. He was innocent. And yet he spent 16 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Now, you say, what are the remedies? I mean, I saw some people on social media post, well, this lady should serve the prison time that he had to serve. That doesn't happen. That's never going to be a result of this case. Other people are saying, well, she should be sued because of the testimony that she gave. And while that may be something that makes sense to people, unfortunately, most states have an immunity for civil liability on testimony that's presented in court. And the policy behind that is we want people to come into court and testify truthfully. And if there are inconsistencies and things of that nature, we don't want people to be afraid to come in and serve as witnesses in court. So it's a testimony immunity. You can't be sued because of the testimony that you present in court. There are, of course, exceptions, as there are in every area of law. So, is there any way that Mr. Broadwater could sue to recover some civil damages for the time that he was wrongfully imprisoned, as well as for his inconveniences post-release? I think there may be. And the method to do that is to sue her for defamation and slander from the book. This is what would be called defamation per se, because it's someone accusing them of committing a felony. In most states, it would be defamation per se. Then she would be responsible for paying. Now, she's made lots of money on these books, and these are books that were written about the incident, and she acknowledges that it was about the incident that occurred in 1981. I think the best way is to sue her and her publishing company and see if they can reach some sort of settlement there. Now, is it a possibility that he could sue the government under a 1983 habeas corpus action? Yes, that's also a possibility because clearly he was wrongfully imprisoned based on junk science and junk information that was presented by the prosecutor at the time, not this prosecutor, obviously, who has relieved him of these convictions. So there's also a possibility he may be able to get compensation from the state as well. I just want to make sure we understand that there are cases, real cases of injustice, that for whatever reason the media likes to ignore because it doesn't get their headlines, it doesn't divide people, and it hurts their agendas and their narrative. So we need to be careful about what we hear from the news, what we get from media sources, and stop letting them divide us and break us apart as a country. I could be wrong, and if you think I'm wrong, please put in the comments. Tell me. I'm blind. I don't know what I'm talking about. You're just a lawyer who goes to court every day. What do you know? Whatever. Put it in the comments, and we'll talk about it. And but if you agree with me, put it in the comments. again, please like this video and you know, share it. Share it with people who like me. Share it with people who hate me. It doesn't make any difference. Just share it. And please subscribe to my channel, and that way you can keep updated on all my videos. If you love them, you can keep watching them and liking them and commenting. If you hate them, you can get every video and put something mean on there and comment on it. That's perfectly fine too. I'm just happy you're watching. So again, thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay tuned.